Okay, with Thomas Anthony Brannagan, Pathfinder Down is the screenplay, one it played at the Action Adventure Film Festival. I was talking your ear off before I pressed record. We're talking about baseball, Detroit Tigers, Toronto Blue Jays rivalry back in the 80s. Something
Long
that nobody
history,
else wants to talk about except for you and I. So we happen to know each other, right?
and we have a great bond now, so that's good.
That's a kind of amazing small world that we live in. So
Yes,
I'm the Blue Jays fan, you're the Tigers fan.
yes, I am.
My childhood is about baseball, so basically we had some good stories to tell.
Yes, it was quite enjoyable.
All right, so this screenplay, you would call it a historical action film. Is that a correct assessment?
Yes, absolutely. It,
So, put you on the spot. Give us the pitch? What is the screenplay about?
well, it's about an emotionally damaged refugee who has decided to take up the cause and joins the British Secret Service and goes into Belgium and occupied Germany and works as an undercover agent. And she's basically a composite of actual female SOE agents like Noor Khan and um, her last name was Zabo that, actually did this type of work. And it was kind of a well-kept secret. So
So, what inspired you to write the? What's inspired you to write the screenplay?
I kind of like, I'm 70 years old, so I grew up kind of surrounded by real life action heroes. One of my grandfathers, my father, a bunch of my uncles were all combat veterans of the Second World War. So I grew up, I was a student of it, and I really got involved and interested in the undercover part, the part that the little people, the non-combatants did to fight totalitarianism. And I think what inspired me is that like 80 years later, we're seeing the exact same thing going on in the Ukraine, a totalitarian state trying to overpower another free nation. And I'm sure that there's real life Madeleines going about their business right now in the Ukraine. And we're going to hear about it, 5 or 6 years from now. So it's, a lot of the struggles that are going on in the world today are still they're just leftovers from the Second World War, unfinished business. And totalitarianism is a scary thing. It's a dangerous world. We're lucky to live in Canada and we don't have to really have to fear it. So
Yeah, for now, I guess, right?
yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. There's
But then
would-be
at the same
dictators.
time, to be fair, like we get along, the United States and Canada, we get along with Japan very well.
Yes,
We trade with
100%.
them. We get
Yep.
along with Germany very well. We trade with them. We're not going to go
Yep.
to war with them. So there's been some peace. There's been some harmony, I guess, with the people we fought against, right?
Yeah, I think, but there's dogmas that people, whether it's religious dogmas or whether it's political dogmas, but there's always totalitarians. People, they're out there to, take away our freedom. And it's kind of a part of the human condition that will fall for it. I mean, the human brain can't tell the difference between a fact and a belief. So we are susceptible to dogmas and we'll follow leaders that will take us down the wrong path. I don't think it's got anything to do with being German or Japanese. It's just part of being the human condition.
Yeah, well, I guess we're seeing that a little bit in the Western world, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can remember my father like saying it could happen here. Don't kid yourself. There was nothing wrong with the German people. There was nothing wrong with anybody. It was just the way that people process information. And if the conditions are right, any nation could fall for it. So I mean, there's would-be dictators close by, right? If you gave them the chance, they would be dictators. So it's a scary proposition. And history's
Yeah.
littered with them. I mean, that's our history is people trying to overpower others. And we've just had a nice break for 80 years.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting way to put it, I guess, right? But then I guess you're using the Russian analogy. Russians, yeah, they were in the 90s, they were kind of falling in line. They were like trading with the rest of the world. They were getting in the UN, but I guess they fell out of line in the last 20 years.
Yeah, maybe a missed opportunity on the West part. Maybe we should have done more to bring them into the fold.
Yeah.
But here we are. I mean, there were people at the end of the Second World War that knew that there was going to be a struggle with Russia. Whether it was Churchill or George Patton, they knew that that was going to be the next.
And there was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and even China is a leftover of the Second World War, right? It's you know,
Yeah. I was just reading about the U.S. There's this book about U.S. presidents and their relationships with each other, and it was Nixon who was telling the first George Bush and Clinton, you got to get good with the Russians. Like they're gonna fall off. You have to be nice to them. He was Nixon of all people telling them that you have to get, because they like you described like a couple minutes ago. Like they basically they fell out of line for a reason. They didn't trust the Americans.
Yeah, and I think something happened with I'm not sure. It was probably with one of the subsequent administrations. They might not have treated them the way that they wanted to, but I don't know. Germany's been fair with them and bought a lot of oil and things like that. So it's they got off the track somewhere, but
Yeah,
it's just a horror story in the Ukraine. I mean, I still follow it every day. I just feel obligated to not forget about them because I can't imagine what that would be like to not know if a missile's coming through your roof. Like we take all that for granted, right?
yeah.
That, but I mean, my parents didn't. They realized that the world was a dangerous place. So
I'm seeing it for like we do these Zoom workshops, and the one we're doing next week is a lady from Ukraine, and she's like, I might not be able to join you because I get bombed all the time at home, and we sometimes the power goes out for a couple days,
yeah,
so I might not be able to join your Western World script workshop, but we're still going to do her scripts and
yeah.
record it and make sure she watches it. But that shows you like where she is, where we are in the world.
Well, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like she's at the bottom couple. She just wants safety and water and some food, and we're way past that. We're up at the top looking for self-actualization and
Yeah,
and those type of things. So hey, you're a generation away from it, but I'm trying to just keep people remembering that this is important stuff. It could happen. The whole world could flip in a day. So
yeah. And there's some interesting elections coming up, and it could flip in a day, I guess, right?
it's scary. I mean, it's when you see things like, 30% of the population, and I think the states would be happy with a dictator of some sort. Like that's playing with fire. You can't be a little pregnant. You can't have a little bit of a dictator, right? It's
Yeah. People don't know what they don't know, right? So
yes, yes. And I think it's because they don't have a grasp of history. Like they just a lot of times they don't see how everything's been connected and 80 years is not a long time for stuff to fester. It happens. So it's
yeah. All right. So you started, according to the blog interview, you started writing screenplays 3 years ago. You mentioned that you're 70 years old. So you started writing when you were 67, doing the math.
No, I started that screenplay. I actually started my screenplay writing career in 2006. I
Okay.
was I
My
was still
apologies.
working, but I took a couple of courses at the University of Wisconsin online. They had online screenwriting courses. So, but I'm going to say in the last 4 years, got more diligent with it. Kind of went into retirement and with COVID, and I really started to focus more of my time. But yeah, I've been at it since '06.
So what motivated you to do it?
I've always wanted to do it. Like, I was just busy with my career and I would always write when I had some time, but during COVID, I just decided now's the time to do it. I took some more courses. I've written screenplays, got notes from people and just kept trying to improve, right? And it's something I love to do. Like if no one ever read my stuff, I think I would still write because I just really feel like it's something I should do, if that
And
makes any sense.
were you always a fan of movies?
Yeah, when I was younger, I saw every single movie that ever came out. And I'm going to say maybe 15 years ago, that kind of switched. And I didn't see, I watched selective stuff, but yeah, I was big movie fan early on. And when I went to university a million years ago, I took English. So, I mean, the hero's journey with Joseph Campbell and Young's archetypes. And I had some basic knowledge of that, back in school. So, but yeah, I always loved stories.
And so
Like you,
you said you worked in the, before the podcast, you worked in the automotive industry.
Yeah, and I spent the last 12 years as a coach and a consultant doing a lot of employee surveys and leadership coaching. And customer surveys and then talking to employees about how their customers are feeling about their experience. So I got into that end of it and traveled all over North America. So it helps to write dialogue after you've had 10,000 conversations. So, I mean, it's a little bit easier.
And so basically, so then you retired and you're able to do what you want. So how do you feel about the screenwriting? I know you said you still do it, but isn't it good that people are reading your scripts and you're winning awards like ours?
Yes, it's really thrilling, and it's I guess it's I don't want to say it's good for the ego, and I'm not really looking for validation, but it's nice to see that you're improving, right? Like
Yeah.
I realize that I can always write a better screenplay, and every bit of information I get from somebody is very helpful, right? And it's I guess when you get older, it's easier to take criticism. I don't think I could have taken it as well maybe 40 years ago, but it's it's a great way to keep the brain moving at my age too, right? And I can write for 7 or 8 hours and then kind of come out of a trance and go, wow, that was that was fun. So yeah, I guess I do it because I enjoy it so much.
And do you have I'm assuming that your wife is cool with it?
Yeah, and my wife actually took film in school, so she still watches every movie that comes out, right? So she's my best critic. Like she'll give me the first draft and go, I don't know about this. You better I'm not feeling it for this. So she's a real help, and then we'll go for a walk with the dog in the morning and she'll go, you're writing now, aren't you? And I'll go, yeah, I'm kind of off in a dream world. So she's very understanding.
Gotcha. And so basically, so then what else have you written besides kind of like this historical action film?
I'm doing a science fiction now. It's kind of about stuff that went on in the 40s and 50s with UFOs and that type of thing. I also wrote I look back and I think it was just self-indulgent. It was something I had to write. It was like a coming of age story about a kid that moves from the country into an industrial city. And the first one I wrote was back in '06. It was about a terrorist attack from Canadian soil on the Super Bowl in Detroit. So it was kind of circa 2006, and I wrote it for my course at the University of Wisconsin. So
They
I've
they had the Super
completed
Bowl that
four.
year, right?
Yeah, they
Detroit?
had the Super Bowl back in '05 or '06. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I'm working on my second draft of my fourth screenplay now. So
And what motivates you to submit to festivals like ours? Are you looking for like feedback?
I'm looking for feedback. I'm looking to see if I'm improving, if I'm falling behind. Uh, I really like the action genre. That's kind of the type of movie that I would like to see as opposed to dramas. So I really enjoy watching the videos on Wild Sound and just kind of seeing how other people, work their magic, and it's been quite the good experience.
Because like tone, I guess, and like
Yeah, there's just different ways of doing things, right? And I think I get a little wordy and sometimes I get out of the right tense, and it's just good to see how other people do things. So starting to read more screenplays. Um, watch a movie like I watched Oppenheimer and tried to follow along with the screenplay, and it was a little hard. That one was, I remember watching that going, how did he do this? I had absolutely, that was just so complex. It was amazing that someone could put that together like that.
a few writers. That's the answer.
Yeah, you just realize, wow, that's amazing that someone can do that well. So
But you could do that after like watch it like 3 or 4 times and then get the screenplay in front of you, right? So
yeah, I think I'm going to do that again. So um, yeah, it was really a thrill to win the contest and to get the feedback, and especially the table read. That was something. It's the first time I've actually heard my words, read by a professional. So that was really a treat. Thank you.
yeah, no problem. You should do the not the pimp on something on you, but you should do the workshop, the Zoom workshop.
Okay, I think I might. We just got back from Europe, so we went on vacation for a couple of weeks. So I'm just getting back into, and then we had a death in the family this weekend. So
Oh, sorry to hear it.
Oh, it happens, and he was suffering a long time, so it's, one of those situations where it's almost a blessing. So,
Gotcha. And so you said you and your wife watch a lot. You guys watch TV or just watch movies, strictly movies?
my wife watches everything. Like she'll watch a lot of the long form. I don't watch as much. Like I've watched Peaky Blinders with her, and I've watched, I watched Justified. I don't know what it was about Justified, but that show caught me. And
Yeah, it's a good show.
well, I really like Elmore Leonard, right? And he,
Yeah.
from Detroit, and I've read all his books, and he's just such a flawed character. It was really good.
Wasn't the last episode the revised one that was based in, wasn't that in Detroit?
Yeah, so we've just recorded that. We just got the last, so
Oh, it's good.
we're gonna sit down and watch that probably this week.
It's got a nice twist to the end.
Okay,
Just
good.
give you a little teaser there, but yeah, it's actually really good.
Okay.
It's a good yeah, it's a good nice, I think 10 episodes. It's really good.
Yeah, and it's about, from the D, so we'll have a little bit of local stuff there. So
100%. Yeah, it's all about
yeah,
Detroit.
yep, yep. So we're looking forward to that one.
Yeah. And so what movie, like, so you said like the movie on your blog, it said Apocalypse Now. That was the movie you've seen the most times?
Yeah, and probably The Godfather. So I guess there's a couple of Francis
Coppola?
Ford Coppola films, right? Like those two. Well, Vietnam was such a big deal for my generation. Like it was just, we just watched it. It was just a horror story that never ended, right? And that was the first movie that kind of came out and kind of told you what you thought was going on, and it it was really cutting edge for its day. So it was, yeah, that I've probably seen that the most. I've seen Chinatown a few times. I remember I did not want to go see it, and my first wife, no, we got to go see it, and I was just amazed. I remember like at the ending going, wow, that was something.
Yeah.
So I've seen that a few times also.
So you're a 70s guy then?
Yeah, I think that's kind of, I mean, I try to keep up with music even into later decades, but my kids were in their prime in the 90s, so the Verve and Stereophonics and a lot of Stone Temple
Yeah.
Pilots. I guess I kind of like a lot of that music, and I grew up in the Motown era, so a lot of prehistoric R&B is
Yeah.
played
But
at home.
listen, what's a better decade for movies and what's a better decade for music? The 70s. I can't name another one.
Maybe not, but I hate to say that, like music didn't stop being good then. I mean, there's all kinds of great music and great movies since
Sure.
then, but I try not to be that chauvinistic about my time because
I'm not from the 70s and I'm telling you, right? So
okay, yeah,
yeah.
it could be, yeah. Yeah. Maybe we late 60s, early 70s, I think a lot of big stuff came out. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But the interesting thing about the 70s and movies is that I've done a lot of research about it. And I've watched probably a lot of movies that either they're really, really good or they're really, really bad.
Yeah, and the bad ones, they kind of made them to be bad, right? Like the
No, but there's some bad ones. Like, I mean, like they try to be good. Like,
oh, okay.
like if you look at the Oscar lists of like 5 films and the other ones, those are the only 10 good films of that year, it seems like.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's from my experience.
Yeah. Well, you're probably right. Yeah. Yeah.
But then those movies were great. There's greatness in those movies. They stand a test of time. So
Yeah. See, I don't know if it's just because that's when I was in my 20s or in my prime, or if
yeah.
that's when I was seeing everything, or but yeah, okay, I'll take your word for it.
Well, you mentioned Chinatown. Chinatown still holds up today. 50 years. They remake that film over and over again, right? So
Well, it was amazing. I mean, the ending was such a shock, and it was yeah. I don't even know if you could make that movie anymore. The way he's smacking Faye Dunaway and
oh
the,
no. Those a couple things change, yeah, yeah. But
yeah, but great movie.
other than
Great movie.
that, though, it's like the way he style like Polanski stylized that movie. It's like it's so timeless in so many
Yeah,
ways, right?
yeah. No, and the tension, it was and yeah, it was very suspenseful. It was a great story. It was just a great story.
And yeah, and Godfather still the second one especially still holds up today. So
Yeah. And I remember when The Sopranos came out, I'm going, why didn't I think of that? Like a mafia boss with issues, like that is such a great idea. Like why, you just you wonder where these great ideas come from.
yeah. But it's the execution of the idea, though, right? They executed it really nicely.
Yes, yes,
They didn't
yeah.
romanticize it. They made that show dark. That show is dark.
Because it's a dark subject, right?
Yeah.
It's they do bad things.
They're murderers. They're sociopaths, right?
Yeah.
So
And I remember Hill Street Blues, like me getting, I got addicted to that. And I can't remember exactly. I lived in Vancouver, so I'm thinking it was 1980 or 82. And that Stephen Baccio,
yeah.
that turned out to be, it was just a soap opera, but about kind of edgy stuff. And in Law and Order, I kind of got into all of that stuff. It just kind of merged that long form TV. So I think that would be difficult to write. I'm having enough trouble just trying to do like 3 acts and split the middle one in two, like to have that many sequences going, I think would take a lot
Well,
of
but
talent.
it's a structure that's a blueprint that's been created, right? Especially Law and
Yeah,
Order. So there's different variations of the show, of course, but there's a blueprint
yeah,
that's been created, and they just call follow the blueprint, right?
yes, yeah. I guess
It's
there is a
fine.
template.
Yeah. All right, man. Well,
Well, thank you so
congratulations
much.
on the
And
screenplay. It's fantastic. Go Blue Jays, right?
yeah,
So
go Tigers.
go Tigers. Different division now, unfortunately, but
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks very much. I really appreciate it. And
yeah,
have a
no,
have a
fantastic
good day.
script. You're really onto something.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate everything you folks have done for me. It's really a help.
All right, man. Let's talk soon when you when your next screenplay.
Okay. Thank you.